So this one is called Veronica's Veil. Dr. Francis, this is Jen calling from the 5th floor. Mrs. Trudeau, she's a 92-year-old lady who, she's here with pneumonia, and she's been just getting worse and worse over the last few hours. I think she's dying. Can you come please and see her? As I pondered why it was that I was asked to see Mrs. Trudeau, Jen continued on, explaining to me that the woman's death was expected at any time. At this stage of her condition, Mrs. Trudeau was made comfortable, and an order for some palliative medication had already been put through. Near the end of the conversation, Jen informed me that permission has already been given for a nurse to pronounce death. But she added quickly, I just thought it would be nice to have a doctor present too. There was currently no one else with Mrs. Trudeau, but Jen assured me that the family's on their way. After listening to Jen, I responded, okay, if you don't mind, can you please stay with her, continue to comfort her until the family or I arrive. No one should die alone. I'll be on my way. I was apprehensive about the encounter. I had never pronounced death before. In fact, I've never seen anybody die. What would I say? What would I do? How was I supposed to feel? As soon as I arrived on the floor, a woman came rushing up to me. Thank you for coming so late, Dr. Francis. I'm sorry, Mrs. Trudeau passed away 10 minutes ago. I stayed beside her until the family arrived. They arrived here just after her passing. Jen anxiously reported. Jen had a kind face, a young face, and spoke with a gentle tone. She looked shaken, nervously shifting her weight. Mrs. Trudeau's chart was softly trembling in her hands. I'm a second-year nursing student. That's my first patient that died. I'm really sorry to have called you, but I just didn't know what else to do. I did what I could to comfort Jen. Jen, thank you for staying with her. It's a pleasure to come whenever you're worried and you're in need of help. You're more than welcome to call me. I gently took the chart from Jen's hand and reviewed it before walking into Mrs. Trudeau's room. As I entered, I saw 2 men and 2 women standing at the front of the bed, looking like statues, staring at the lifeless body of a woman, their mother. Their somber eyes fixated, their aged faces blank, their emotions guarded, and their bodies motionless, mirroring that of Mrs. Trudeau. Their mother's pale face bore an expression of satisfaction after a job well done. Her once sparkling blue eyes were open and dulled, looking beyond the walls of her room at something that none of us could quite grasp. Her arms were by her side, aligned with the faint pink flowery pattern on her white nightgown. Her breathless chest was decorated with a small golden cross necklace that rested on the lacy collar of her gown. The light at the head of her bed shone down on Mrs. Trudeau's face, like a spotlight, drawing attention to the chef d'oeuvre. I stood there quietly, absorbed by this painting of sorrow. Then, the still aura of the room was interrupted by one of the granddaughters, who quickly wiped away a tear, as if to hide any evidence of the grief that was drowning them all. They turned in unison as I introduced myself. I shook their hands one by one, as their blue eyes offered silent gratitude for my presence. None of us could find the proper words to say. As if approaching an altar, I walked reverently toward Mrs. Trudeau's bed and sat down on its edge. I cradled her right hand with both of my hands. Never had a hand felt so cold. How many times had these hands felt the foreheads of her children when they were sick, or prepared the many meals she made for her family? How many times had they enabled her as a nurse to tend to the devastating injuries of others incurred during the war. With my left hand, I gently closed her eyes, allowing them to rest after 92 years of witnessing life's joys and hardships, humanity's good and evil. I tenderly rearranged the few haphazard hair on her forehead, then held her hand again with both my hands. I closed my eyes and silently said a prayer. As the minutes went by, I became a new character in this motionless mime. "She's so peaceful," I said. One of the daughters approached her mother on the other side of the bed. I could sense her apprehension. She had so much to say, but no words were coming. So much love to show, but she was unsure of how to show it. "You can touch her," I said. And as if waiting for my permission, she inched closer, and holding her mother's face with her hands, she burst into sobs as she bent over to kiss her mother's forehead. The other daughter reached for her mother's hand and repeatedly kissed it between sobs. I could hear the brothers crying behind me. I paid each of them my condolences, telling them how truly sorry I was for their loss. Before leaving, I shook their hands, and as I did so, each of them looked at me in the eyes and thanked me for being there. Their gratitude was so sincere, I could feel my heart swelling. I left the room, allowing them the time to grieve over their mother. I've been involved with many deliveries, and have been embraced and thanked repeatedly by new parents for my contribution to their son or daughter's birth. But this gratitude was very different. These siblings had generously allowed me to experience with them one of the most vulnerable times in their lives. I was honored to approach their mother and to sit at the side of her bed. I was privileged to give them the permission to touch her and to mourn. I was overwhelmed by their heartfelt thanks. What a tribute Christ made to Veronica when he imprinted his face onto the cloth she kindly used to wipe him as he carried the cross. In a similar way, this family, in their most vulnerable of times, responded to my small act of kindness by imprinting their generosity onto the fabric of my being. Thank you.